Hello everybody and welcome back to 10 Things. Today we're going to be covering a very interesting new game called Cuphead. I've had my eye on Cuphead since I think it was E3 2014 where they showed a trailer with this interesting 1920s, 1930s style animation that showed some kind of bullet hell boss fight. And you guys know me, I love my boss fights, so I was hooked from the get-go. Now, this game took a really long time to come out after that, but that's fine. I'm always willing to wait for a game as long as the development is going to pay off, so we'll find out today with 10 things, only 10 actual things today, if it paid off between what I love and hate about Cuphead. And the number one thing I love, the animation, no doubt about it. The throwback to the animation style from the 1920s and 1930s, I'm not too familiar with that style of animation, but it reminds me of Steamboat Willie. I've seen those cartoons from Disney back in the day, and it is unbelievable how crafted with care the animation throughout this game is. It looks like a cartoon from the 1920s or 1930s, and they just put it in video game motion form, and it's spectacular. There's so many jaw-dropping moments throughout the whole experience because the style never gets old. Each boss has its own unique flair to it. The animation is very childlike in how it moves and flows, but it has this sinister undertone to it that is just bewildering. I'm not an expert, but from a visual standpoint, it's one of the most visually pleasing games I've ever played from a non-realistically animated standpoint. Like, sure, if you're looking for realism, this isn't the game, but that's not what this is about. The number two thing that I love is the music, which fits perfectly with the animation. It's a throwback to oldies with big band music, jazz music, blues. The tracks are great, and I would buy the soundtrack in a heartbeat. You actually can if you buy the deluxe edition. You can get the soundtrack with it. I have to say though that while the tracks are very great, they will wear on you over time because as we will talk about, this game is pretty hard, and some of the tracks like start to make you go loopy and crazy as you continue to fight these bosses over and over and over. So it's not necessarily against the music, it's just that some of these oldie tunes can really start to warp your head as you get delved down into the experience of getting beat down by this game over and over again. But before we get into that, let's talk about the number three love, the fluidity of the movement and tech. So there's a couple of different things in the game. There's, of course, you have a jump and a parry. So a lot of platformer or bullet hell mixture games offer a double jump. In this game, you don't actually have a double jump, but what you do have is a parry. With the animation style, any object that's pink in the game, you can actually press the jump button again, and you'll do a parry off of it. The parry will protect you from taking damage from that object, but it'll also give you a bonus to your super, which I'll explain here in a moment. You can also use a dash, which allows you to dodge, and the very, very, very useful smoke bomb augment allows you to get iframes like you would in a game like Souls. I know we're comparing this game to Souls, the Dark Souls of cartoons, everybody. But there is a dash, which is really nice because even if you don't have the iframes, it still allows you quick movement to get out of the way or to get to a platform. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the game reviewer who had a hell of a time getting past the tutorial, which if you've reviewed games for 25 years, there's a certain standard that you should expect for being able to play games. Jumping and dashing in air is not something new when it comes to 2D games, so it's pretty rough for that guy. Let's go easy on him, he's had enough. And then there's the shooting, which I just want to say from an animation perspective alone, I love because he snaps his fingers every time he's shooting his little gun. It's adorable. It just adds more flair to the system. But it's a basic shot, and I'm very glad that you can hold it down and you don't have to mash it, because between all the different things that you have to do, it would be very problematic if you had to mash it. Of course, I'm an idiot, and I started mashing it initially, but fortunately I found out pretty quickly that you can hold it down. Now, as you shoot, and as I mentioned, as you parry, you'll gain super. At the bottom of the screen next to your 3 HP, which you get 3 hits for every level, quick to mention that, you get a super, and each card represents 1 super. You can get up to 5 cards, and when you get 5 cards, you can actually get a ultimate super, which I'll talk about those in a little bit when I talk about the actual equipment. But it's essentially a stronger attack. So it's a reward for shooting for a long period of time. They can be very clutch in certain moments where you're low health and you really just need to do massive damage to make sure you don't die. And the last thing is plane levels for variety. So a lot of the game is platforming and shooting, but there are plane levels where you get to be in a cool little oldie style aeroplane and you get to shoot at bosses. I want to say there's 4 or 5 bosses that are based on the plane, maybe more. I gotta say, some of the plane levels are some of the hardest bosses, at least for me. But the plane's a lot of fun, they designed it very well, and it's cool to have a little bit of variety. When we talk about variety, we'll talk about the number 4 thing I love. As always, I am excellent at these transitions. Number 4 is the equipment. So you get 6 types of basic shots. For example, the basic shot is a pea shooter that has good range, solid medium damage. It's just a good overall weapon. You can get a lobbed, slow, powerful shot, so it has an arc to it and it's very powerful, which means even though it's very good, there's some situations where it might miss. Like if you were to shoot it upward, it wouldn't go very high because it's lobbed. Momentum would keep it from going up, and there are many moments in the game where you need to shoot a boss that's above you. There are boomerang shots that don't shoot very far forward, but if you turn around and shoot them backward, they'll actually loop around and go across the entire screen with maximum range. Then there's a spread gun, which is basically a shotgun. It only shoots at very close range, but it does incredibly high damage if you're hitting all those shots. So a lot of it is a give and take with range, spread, damage, and you get to choose 2 of each. There are also 6 types of upgrades, so these you can think of as like an augment or a buff for your character. For example, you can get more hearts, but if you take the extra hearts or extra HP, you do a little bit less damage. You can get the invisible dash with iframes from the smoke bomb that I mentioned, so when you dash, you'll disappear for a second, and while you're off the screen, you won't take any damage. Then there's auto parries, so I mentioned to parry, you need to hit the jump button, and it's a pretty fine timing. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's pretty close. So an auto parry basically will parry the first time, so if you are in midair and there's 2 objects, if you hit the second one, you'll have to parry the second one, but if it's only 1 object, as soon as you touch it, it just auto parries for you, which is pretty ridiculous. And then there's another one, I think it's called Coffee, that will give you extra super. Just constantly, you'll constantly pour super into your meter, which, as I said, super can be very powerful, especially if you reach the ultimate supers, which there are 3 of. There's these little cute mausoleum levels where you have to parry these ghosts to keep them out of a, I guess like a, what are they? Whatever they keep ashes in, I don't know. You get 3 types of supers from those. One is the Kamehameha wave. Firing up the base cannon, you shoot a massive Kamehameha wave that just obliterates anything. I love this super. I'm not gonna lie, it's the only one I ever used. I did get the second one, which is invincibility, but I never even equipped it. The second one, in theory, makes you invincible for a short amount of time, so I guess you can just get up in the boss's face and spam damage, which is pretty cool, but the Kamehameha wave just does so much damage already. And then the last one is a ghostly damage super. I never got this one. I looked it up on the wiki before this video so I can make sure I was informed, and it turns you into a ghost where you get to do damage or something. I don't know, I haven't used it and I never went back and got it. Whoops. That's because the Kamehameha wave's so good. Just fire up the base cannon and forget about it. So after talking about what you play with, let's talk about what you play against, which is number 5, love the bosses. This was what got me excited about this game initially, was bosses. I love bosses in games, and I can't think of a boss in this game, genuinely. There are, of course, weaker bosses than others. There are bosses that I don't like as much as I like other bosses. There are bosses sometimes where I'm like, man, that was bullshit, or whatever, but I don't think I can think of a single boss in this game that I hate. I don't think there's one boss in this game that I'm just like, sticks out to me like, yeah, that one I really hate. I can think of some that are really hard, and I am gonna make a top 5 hardest bosses. Not gonna make top 5 easiest, because honestly, no boss in this game is easy per se. There are some easier ones, but they're all pretty challenging. But I like them all. Every single boss has a unique design to it. Yeah, they share some commonalities between them. It really boils down to dodging precision, the real estate you have on the screen for safety versus danger, and balancing offense versus defense. But every single boss feels different and forces a separate learning curve. Which goes into my number 6 love, which is the difficulty. This game is hard. And when I say hard, I mean rock motherfucking hard. This game is absurdly difficult compared to anything else I've played in a long time. People have been memeing, I know Dark Souls being a synonym for difficulty in gaming these days is a meme, but this game is harder than any of the Souls games to me. I've played the Souls games very thoroughly, and this game is more difficult. It requires a different skill set. Of course, you have to balance aggression in the same way you have to in those games, but there is something for everybody to struggle with here. Maybe you're not good at multitasking. That will screw you in this game, because there's so many times where you need to be shooting, but you also need to be dodging, but you also need to be thinking about your next move, but you also need to be thinking about platform placement. And it's just so much that goes into it all at one time. And I'm admittedly a horrible multitasker, so that really screwed me up. Everyone is going to struggle with something different, but there are going to be bosses for each of you that are going to take loads of time to get down properly, which I'll talk about in my top 5 hardest bosses. I'm actually speedrunning Cuphead right now on Twitch, which you're always welcome to join us there. We would love to have you over there. I really would. And when I first beat the game, it took me 9 hours and 360 deaths to beat the game, to get to the very end and beat the final boss and get the good ending. The second time through, I managed to do a speed run in just over 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I imagine I had something like 60 deaths. It was a lot still, because there's some bosses, they're just, I'll talk about it in the video, they're very challenging, but the challenge is always rewarding, as long as you remain patient, as long as you don't let this game tilt you or make you rage. You'll continue to see progress as you move through your attempts, and it means the game is centered around trying the same bosses over and over, which could be a good or bad thing. For me, it is a love. I'm not making that a separate thing, that's part of difficulty. I love that this game is centered around overcoming boss challenges. But if you're not in for that, if you're not in for repeating bosses and getting really good at an encounter over and over, and that's not what you want, you're not going to enjoy that aspect of the game, which is the biggest portion of the game. Now, I think the animation and the music are appealing to anybody. I think this is the kind of game that if I was playing on my couch and my grandma walked in the room, that it would catch her attention, whereas if I'm playing something like Halo 4 and she walks in, she's gonna say, "What the hell is this space shooter? Why is that man talking to a robot woman, and why does she look like she has no clothes on?" Let's talk about number 7 level, which is the run and gun levels. Now, I want to say, the series is very black and white. I talk, either I love it or I hate it. I love the run and gun levels because they're very well designed, they are incredibly challenging but fair, and they offer a higher challenge tier reward if you want to go through and get all the coins. You can finish the levels without getting all the coins, but the coins are practically, other than the reward of playing the actual damn game, the point of going through them, because the coins are how you buy all that equipment I was talking about before. You don't get coins for bosses. I'm going to talk about that. And the number 8 love is the grading system, which offers replayability. The grading system scores you on your time taken to beat the stage or boss, the damage you took, the parries you executed, and the amount of super that you used, everything that matters in a perfect run of any of the levels or bosses. I love this. I love this because it offers replayability. If you really enjoy these encounters, and like I said, this whole game is centered around mastering these encounters, getting a perfect grade means you've mastered that encounter in the developer's eyes. Now, what I don't like the coin system in the way that it currently is compared to what I would have preferably made it. I'm not saying I hate it, but I don't love it, so it's kind of like an indifference. Coins are rewarded from the run and gun levels, as I said, but if I had my way with it, I would have rather had coins be rewarded from the grading system. Maybe when you get a C, you get 1 coin. Maybe when you get a B, you get 2 coins. Maybe if you get an A, you get 3 coins. And maybe if you get that S rank from expert, you get maybe a special item. Because I won't say I hate the running gun levels, I don't. I just didn't need platforming from this game. Now, that might sound strange because it's still good. It's very good, it's very well designed, and it's actually fun, but I love the boss aspect of this game so much that I just wish they had made 6 more bosses instead of platforming levels. It's a very, what's the word, gluttonous complaint. Like, I don't need more bosses from this game, but I want them. And I didn't need the run and gun levels, but I don't hate them. And I would have just liked to see some reward for your challenge other than just, you know, your own personal pat on the back, because that's fine, that's enough. So I don't hate it, I just kind of wish they had made a reward system for beating the bosses in an efficient way, other than just, you did it, good for you. I mean, maybe there's achievements for that or something, but I don't really care about achievements personally. It would have been nice to have some kind of in-game reward, maybe even skins or something like that, maybe something cosmetic, I don't know. The final hate is something that, again, isn't really too big of a deal, but it would have made a difference in the way the game plays in a pretty big way, I think. They didn't utilize the right stick on the controller. So I'm sure you guys are gamers, you know controllers, they usually have 2 sticks these days. We have a left analog and a right analog, whether you're playing on Xbox 360 or if you're like me, I bought the game on PC and I play with the DualShock 4. You do all of your movement with the left left thumbstick, and you also aim with the left thumbstick. So if you want to aim up diagonal to shoot up diagonal, you have to walk forward as well. If they had put it on the right stick, you could have moved and shot in whatever direction you like. They do allow you to lock yourself in position, so you can hold, for me, I mapped it to something different, whatever it may be for you, there's a button you can hold, and that button will allow you to lock yourself in place, and then you can aim in whatever direction you like. So they did have a mechanic for it. I just think it would have been more fluid if you used the right stick. I got used to it really fast and it didn't matter that much, but it's just a minor thing that could have made the game feel a little bit more fluid when I said I loved the fluidity of the game. I think they may have done it so that you couldn't abuse things like shooting behind yourself or something like that, but they could have just given you no ability to shoot behind yourself. However, I do think it would have made the game easier, and I think they wanted it to be costly to stand still, or to shoot at an angle basically with no cost. They wanted you to have to either stand still to shoot at an angle, or they wanted you to have to move to be able to do it. So I can understand where they were coming from. Overall, I think this game honestly is worth buying alone on the animation and music. I think anybody could enjoy watching this game be played. When I watched my Twitch chat, people who didn't even know about this game, people were, even if they weren't interested in this kind of game, even if they didn't want a boss rush, bullet hell, platformer type game, that wasn't their style, some of them are coming around and saying, wow, this is something unique, this is something different. Even though this isn't something I would normally be into, I think I might actually be willing to give this a chance. And I think I want to praise the developers of this game because they had an artistic vision and they really stuck to it. Even though it took them a very long time to make this game exactly what they wanted to be, they stuck to it. And from at least what the finished product shows, maybe there is cut content like there is with pretty much every game, but they have a fully realized game that doesn't compromise on anything. It didn't compromise on the animation. It didn't compromise on the music. It didn't compromise on polished, fluid gameplay. It didn't compromise on quality bosses. It didn't even compromise on having a bigger vision for the game and creating a different game mode where you're able to do platforming. I think that, again, in a year where we have had so many good games, I'm telling you, I can't wait to make my 2017 top 10 games list because honestly, first of all, I've played more than 10 games this year, which is good, and it's just been a phenomenal year. I don't know that we've had as good of a year as we've had this year in the entire generation so far of games, and I think this may be a top 5 all-time year for releases because we've just had so many good ones. I love you guys very much. Thank you for watching these videos. I really do appreciate it. Hope it brightened up your day in some kind of way. So I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, night, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.